Welcome to episode 7 of the Wheelhouse. I am your host, one of your hosts, Andrew O. With me, chewing his food, is Sterling. So I'll go to Gus first. Gus Rives.
Woo! What's up?
Yeah,
Sterling, you're up.
No. We can talk for a little bit. Let him finish.
Okay.
It's an unusual recording time.
It's Andrew's mother's granola that he's eating.
Yeah.
So.
Man.
Shirtless.
Shirtless. Well, kind of.
We rescheduled the show one time, and everything's just wrong.
Yeah.
Everything's just wrong.
Mason's here.
It's very late. It's later than we usually record.
Yeah.
9:30 late.
Yeah.
Well,
And so
Yeah, and we have a live audience. Mason.
Mason's...
That's when the clap sign
Steger.
comes up. And
Yeah. Thank you, Mason. We opted to not give him a mic this time around, but maybe next time.
Yeah. He'll have to buy his own.
Talk
We only have
about
3.
anime or something. Yeah.
So, we were all on spring break. Did you guys do anything
Right.
noteworthy?
No, nothing.
Not at all, really.
Moving on.
We went to Oklahoma for the weekend.
Mm-hmm. And to Austin for a day.
In Austin for a day. I found in Norman, I found On the Beach vinyl, which is pretty rare.
Oh, yeah.
But I got it for a good deal. So, yeah. Oh, perfect. And I
yeah.
got another vinyl that has something to do with my pitch later. So should I say it now? Does it even matter?
Wait.
Yes, we'll wait. Not
Okay.
pitch time.
Okay. Well, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
What about you, Andrew?
nothing too outstanding. Mostly relaxed, stayed home.
Wow, this is really exciting.
Shock.
Good radio.
Okay.
Well, one more thing I want to talk about first. What was very interesting that happened over spring break was that we got an email, which is unusual.
Oh, yeah. Tell us about this.
Yes. There's this man named Chris Santi. He wrote this lovely email to the...
It's up on the screen.
Yes, I'll read it. It says, "Hi, my name's Chris. I just wanted to contact you after seeing your video on YouTube today. This is a promotional ad involving your video getting a whole lot of popularity. First off, you have a lot of potential, and if you look at anyone who's successful at doing what you're doing right now, you'll see that they all have one thing in common. They're all popular and have a huge following on the web. Your pure skill and talent won't cut it anymore.
Oh, no.
If you don't have a strong online presence, how's anyone going to see your work? I've helped numerous undiscovered talent build their fans' exposure, and I would be happy to help with your
Notice
success
he
as well.
lists no examples.
Yeah, like who? Chris?
My team and I can start getting your view count up to starting this week to thousands in parentheses.
Yeah.
We have a promotion that you can afford right now, and it'll get your view count to over 10,000 plus within a few days.
Woo!
Real people watching your video. This is the power of the web."
Did you click the link? I don't think you should, but
I don't want viruses on my laptop, so
I don't think so.
To your success, Chris Santi, Indie Artist Marketing.
Nice
Indie
try,
artist
Chris.
marketing.
And here's the kicker, Comic Sans.
I know. I was thinking that. I was like, is that seriously in Comic Sans?
Yeah.
Of course.
So,
Probably like your only fan.
Yeah.
Who, like watches your videos, and now you've just like completely destroyed your
Alienated our only
Yeah,
fan.
if you could see our inbox right now, it's totally empty except for this one email from Chris.
yeah. So, you could fix that by emailing us at wheelhousecast@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
But
Please.
we have a lot on the show today. At least I think we do. We'll find out. We're doing something a little unusual. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, if you're new to the show, here's how the show normally works on a typical episode. Every week, we each recommend a piece of media that the other two have not experienced. We go out, watch, listen, or play those recommendations, then come back and review them. This episode, we are recommending an album, a graphic novel, and a movie. Right? Did I get that right? Yes, we are. But first, we get into our first themed episode. All things Kurt Cobain and Nirvana. And again, I think this was my idea, but I don't remember saying that initially. But we're doing it. And there's no stopping now.
Can't turn back.
So
9:30. 9:30 p.m., man.
Yeah, we're not turning back no matter what. We got to get this on the road.
what is your experience with grunge rock? Or when was let me rephrase it. When was the first time you heard a Nirvana song or got into Nirvana?
Probably around high school, I guess. I didn't grow up listening to like 90s alternative or anything like that because my parents were old by then. And so I heard more like Beatles and stuff like that. And so I really didn't even know like Smells Like Teen Spirit or any of the other bigger hits until I was maybe like 15 or so. So that was my first time experiencing Kurt Cobain.
I would say probably around 14 or 15 for me too, but definitely without a question, "Smells Like Teen Spirit" was the first instance of hearing Nirvana at all. That's probably one of the first songs I learned on guitar too.
Oh yeah.
But other than that, like never really delved into Nirvana. The first full Nirvana album I heard was either last year or freshman year, was Nevermind. That was when I was living with Dean, I think, actually. But, yeah.
Shout out Dean.
Shout out Dean. Yeah, so I'm very new to all this.
I think I was first aware of Nirvana as like a big thing in late middle school. And at the time, I was not into music like I am now. So I went and watched Smells Like Teen Spirit, and I thought that song was garbage.
Oh,
because,
wow.
Which is not to say that song in particular, just in general. Like, I realized some songs and artists and full albums, I didn't really have that vocabulary built up. So when I would experience more experimental or edgy material, to me, just didn't catch. So it took a while. And then I revisited later and like, yeah, Nevermind and all these other albums are
Now you're
great.
listening to Frankie Teardrop by Suicide.
Yeah.
Teardrop, Husker Du.
Gree by Dr. John.
Gree.
Kraftwerk.
Yeah, Kraftwerk.
What's it called? Autobahn.
Autobahn. Bow, 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 Autobahn.
So have you guys listened to any other grunge rock bands?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Alice in Chains, I was a big fan of.
I really like Alice in Chains.
I like Soundgarden.
Super Unknowns.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I haven't ventured too far into their discography, but one band that Sterling and I both don't care for in the grunge spectrum is Pearl Jam. We're not Pearl Jam people.
I've listened.
That's probably the only other grunge band I've listened to, and I don't like it at all.
I've listened to 10, and I like it, but yeah, that's the only Pearl Jam.
Like instrumentally, it's fine, and then
Eddie Vedder opens his mouth, maybe.
If Eddie Vedder, if the post grunge movement didn't take his vocal style, maybe it would have been a more likable band for me. But yeah, I'll say I like him more than like Creed or Nickelback or anything like that.
Yeah.
Any Stone Temple Pilots?
A little bit.
Not really.
I like Purple. I don't like their first album that much.
Was it Core?
Yeah.
I haven't listened to that.
But Purple has some sweet riffs. I never really liked their singer though. Rest in peace. He just died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scott
Wayland or Wieland.
Jinx.
Yeah.
Rip.
Speaking of dead people.
Speaking of Rip.
Yeah, so the first major thing we're going to do is get into a biography of Kurt Cobain, chronicling his entire life.
Is he dead?
Spoilers.
Oh no.
I'm sorry.
I didn't know.
In addition, we will be talking about Nirvana's 3 studio albums, their MTV Unplugged performance, and the Montage of Heck film that came out last year, Kurt Cobain documentary. So, I'll say that for me, the primary source of information for the biography I got from the book Heavier Than Heaven, which came out in 2001, biography of Kurt Cobain, written by Charles R. Cross. And yeah, I took extensive notes, and I am ready to roll. Woo. You guys ready?
I am also ready to roll.
Yeah, I'm good.
So, Kurt Cobain was born February 20th, 1967 in Aberdeen, Washington. He was the first child and the first grandchild of a large extended family. His father, Don, was a mechanic at the time. His mother, Wendy, was pregnant in high school, and then they got married and then had Kurt. Kurt showed musical inclination at the age of 2, wrote a song at 4. He never took formal piano lessons, and he could play a melody by ear. So, very, very precocious.
Oh.
He also had an imaginary friend named Boda.
Nice.
Fun fact.
Boda.
Bodddah. Did that ever show up in the movie documentary?
I don't think so.
No?
If it did, I didn't pay attention.
Okay. So eventually they moved to Aberdeen. Kurt later in his life described it as a white trash posing as middle class. When he was 3, he had a sister named Kimberly. In September 1972, he started elementary school. He was not a shy boy. He excelled in art and drawing. he was super hyperactive and super energetic. Like
Super
you saw
hyperactive.
some of that documentary footage in
Yeah.
Montage of Heck. You saw him. They prescribed Ritalin to him for possible ADHD, and Courtney Love also used it. That's something they bonded over. But it was hypothesized at the time that using Ritalin as a child would kind of be conducive to drug use when you're older. So we kind of know how that turned out. So maybe.
Interesting.
He proved him wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So around this time, Kurt was becoming aware of parental tensions. Wendy and Don, they were a young couple. You know, Wendy was pregnant in school. They had to deal with work, and they were going through a lot of financial problems. So in February 1976, Wendy wanted a divorce. And this was a big moment in Kurt's life.
And in the movie too.
Yeah.
This was kind of like the branching off point for like everything that they describe in the film.
So Wendy got custody of the kids, and very soon she started dating someone else named Frank Franick. And then how Kurt took it, he internalized the divorce and perceived it as it being his fault. On the bedroom wall of his home, he wrote, quote, "I hate mom, I hate dad. Dad hates mom, mom hates dad. It simply makes you want to be sad." Yeah, pretty heavy. And he did do similar things in a journal he kept through his whole life. Yeah, and from that point, he had a lifelong longing for a traditional family unit, and that's something that's sort of recurring through his entire life. He eventually lives with Don, and Don promises he'll never get remarried, but in 1977, he starts dating Jenny Wesley, and that kind of devastates Kurt as well. Again, going to the idea of him mourning the loss of his original family. Starts talking back, refuses to do chores, bullying. Again, it's sort of his personality switching, and it's definitely the divorce is the crux of that. September 1979, he starts 7th grade at Montesano Junior High School. He is in the school band. He watches a lot of TV, especially SNL, and he does lots of doodling, constant. He's quiet in school, but he is enraged at home. He thought his step-siblings were more favored. Also at this time, he started doing some short films with his Super 8 camera. One of them, in 1982, was called Kurt Cobain Commits Bloody Suicide. In it, he has a top of a soda can and cuts his wrist and there's fake blood everywhere. Yeah, so he was very indifferent to suicide from an early age. He even told his friends, quote, "I'm going to be a superstar musician, kill myself, and go out in a flame of glory."
Nice.
Very young age. And again, it's kind of easy because we sort of lionize Kurt Cobain and raise him as this musical legend. So when we hear stuff like that, it's easy to go oh, he was prophesized early on. But that's kind of dangerous also. But anyway, yeah, there's another, talking about being indifferent to suicide. Later, Kurt said that in his family he had, quote, suicide genes. His great uncle killed himself and a couple other people in his family. In 8th grade, he saw a corpse hanging from a tree when walking to school. So again, these sort of experiences stuck with him when he got older. In 8th grade, Kurt Cobain started doing drugs. Started with marijuana and LSD. He became more distant from his family and friends. He was very isolated. But at the same time, he also got a cheap guitar, took it everywhere with him. So again, still sticking with the music. March 1982, Kurt Cobain leaves his home and bounces around relatives' houses. He transfers to a new high school, which is very hard to adjust. But he thrived in his art class, and he created a lot of more edgy subject matter, including a comic strip called Jimmy the Prairie Belt Sausage Boy, which the characters were veiled personas of Kurt and his parents. He moved back with his mother Wendy for a while, but a lot of infighting, so again, not very stable relationships. March 29th, 1983, Kurt goes to his first concert in Seattle, Sammy Hagar and Quarter Flash, and a very formative experience for young Kurt.
Weird.
How far is Seattle from Aberdeen? Because, I'm curious because you always hear people like Nirvana is a band from Seattle. It's a band from Seattle, Washington. But in the movie, they're like Aberdeen, Aberdeen, Aberdeen. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So I thought to me, that was pretty interesting.
Well, it's also with the grunge movement in general. It was located in Seattle.
Fair, yeah.
So that's why I kind of group it together.
Yeah.
Is it like a suburb?
I think so.
Well, if Google Maps didn't put me to Aberdeen, UK, and say 11 days, get more accurate. About a 2-hour drive from Aberdeen to Seattle.
Well,
Interesting.
you know.
So actually, it looks like Aberdeen is closer. Yeah, is closer to the coast than Seattle.
Huh.
So now you know.
Yeah.
1983,
Anyways, please continue.
1983, Kurt Cobain wants to kill himself, but first he wants to lose his virginity, and this was a very huge scene in Montage of Heck.
Montage of
Oh
Heck.
my
Which
God.
one of the
bizarre,
an amazing scene
One of the
because
best parts.
a couple of sequences in the film are animated.
Yes,
And
those are the best parts.
Yeah, it's because
They're the best parts.
Yes. Oh my God, I thought they were so strong. So much.
Well, I guess we'll talk about the movie a bit later
Yeah.
on, but
in the film, I guess they have these like audio recordings, but they don't have visuals, so they decide to animate over it. And in this instance, Kurt Cobain goes to the house of a mentally disabled girl and molests her. And he had wanted to go through and have complete sex with her, but he got sort of disgusted by what he was doing and just sort of left. That's kind of accurate, right?
Yeah.
Were there more details that they
much.
showed in the movie?
I guess beforehand, he was hanging out with a group of friends who would go to her house and steal booze from her. So I
Mhm.
guess that's how he kind of got to know her.
Yeah.
He was like, you know what? I want to lose my virginity. So he like goes over and like talks to her, and she was like, yeah, I've done this before.
Yeah.
Like all this stuff. And
Oh, yeah. and
yeah,
then-
he didn't know how.
Yeah.
He didn't know how to have sex, and he asked her
Yeah.
if she knew.
It's really
She said she did.
disturbing.
it's
Yeah.
a very grotesque scene.
Yeah.
Just by being animated, it's like really heavy. It's
Yeah.
like,
It's gross.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like the girl's dad found out and like was marching through the school trying to find who did it. And according to the book I read, Kurt Cobain like got by because they brought the girl a yearbook and said like look at the person and see who did it, and Kurt Cobain didn't get his yearbook picture that year. So
Oh wow.
yeah.
And
But in 1984, he did lose his virginity. He was hanging out with two friends. One was named Jackie, and the other one I don't have. They go to his mother Wendy's house. Kurt gets naked with Jackie, but then Wendy barges in when they're about to have sex, and then kicks all three of them out. And then I believe they go to Jackie's house, but like her boyfriend is there or something. So he ends up having sex with Jackie's friend. So
whoa.
Oh.
yeah. At that point, Wendy did not want Kurt in the house anymore. So Kurt leaves his home with his guitar, his amp, and 4 hefty bags of clothes and other belongings. And he was very nomadic at this period. He spent a lot of time under the Young Street Bridge, which is mentioned in the song Something in the Way. Right?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people contest that he said he like slept there sometimes
He d-
under
yeah.
night, and people were like, it's impossible because it would
Yes.
the water would rise too
Yeah.
high. So,
And Kurt had that tendency to sort of embellish his
Yeah.
childhood stories. But in reality, he hung out at that bridge, but he didn't really live there. He stayed in apartment hallways and hospital waiting rooms, which is kind of smart because everyone just assumed like, oh, he's just waiting for someone, but he just slept in the waiting room. He converted to Christianity for a spell. He was even baptized at Central Park Baptist. Again, that's you could sort of psychoanalyze it and say he's trying to find some higher purpose to sort of
Some meaning.
to trying to like give meaning to all that family turmoil. But soon after he renounces it. He has a friend named Jesse Reed, and he stays at that family's house. It's a very caring environment overall, support him musically. And at this place, at this time, he meets one Chris Novoselic.
Okay, in the movie, this is a complaint of mine. I was
Okay.
watching with Helen. They totally skipped this whole period of his life. They went right into, then he had a band.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, what the?
Yeah.
I wanted to hear about like the meeting and everything, and also no Dave Grohl. We'll probably talk about that later.
Yeah.
So-
Never once.
So yeah, like he was in a band called Fecal Matter, right?
Mhm.
And like in the movie, it's just like there's this like part where it just keeps like sketching out band names and whatnot,
Yeah.
and so it just like skips over all these, including Fecal Matter, and then it's like Nirvana, it's settled, and
The
so,
final name.
the final name, yeah.
And then when they released Bleach too, there wasn't like a point where we go, okay, we released Bleach. It was just like it was out, and then it kept on rolling along, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll get more specific. Kurt Cobain drops out of high school, goes around, does many different odd jobs, including for about 2 months he was a janitor at his own high school.
Yeah, they talked about that.
Yeah, could not stand that, so he left. Eventually got kicked out of the Reed house. And he actually stayed at other friends' houses, but it was this sort of pattern. And the way that the author puts it was a cycle of intimacy, conflict, banishment, and isolation, where he would, sort of be welcomed in this nurturing environment, but sort of his inner, personality traits came out and his inner struggles, and it sort of broke that, and then he ended up being kicked out. So, December 1985, his band Fecal Matter had their first show. It was Kurt, Dale Crover on bass, and Greg Hokinson on drums. On September 1st, 1986, Wendy gives Kurt $200, and Kurt rents a house, but it was more like a shack. The address was 1,500 East 2nd Street, and that half was because it was like literally behind another house.
Oh my God.
But many a jam session took place there, and Kurt became really serious in his music practicing and songwriting. Also, heavy drug use. Pot, beer, acid, and even aerosol cans when he couldn't get anything else. At this time, I believe it was in his journal that he said, "I'm never going to make it past 30." So, again,
Prophesized.
sort of those prophetic lines. 1987, meets a girlfriend, Tracy Marander, who was in Montage of Heck, interviewed. They had a shared interest in punk music and pet rats. They had many pet rats. March 1987, the first Nirvana concert. At that time, the band was still unnamed, but it had Kurt Christ and Aaron Burkhardt on drums. It was just at someone's house. It was very disorganized, drunken, but energetic. 1987, Kurt Cobain leaves Aberdeen forever. He moves to Olympia with Tracy. They get an apartment, and, they have a lot of animals, rabbits, turtles, rats, cats. So Kurt and Chris were supported by their girlfriends, Tracy and Shari, and they were able to, do a lot of gigs by being supported by them financially. January 23rd, 1988, they record a few demos at Reciprocal Studios, and that's important. It'll come back later. And around this time, they settled on the name Nirvana. And it was sort of Kurt thinking about that, how they wanted to attain musical perfection. Also at this time, he created this persona, Kurt Cobain, spelled Kurdt. Did you guys notice that?
Yeah. What's the story behind that?
It was sort of a punk rock persona he created for himself, and it was to reconcile the sensitive and public opinion obsessed regular Kurt with the hardcore and anti-establishment underground musician. So in public, being a musician, he wants to be, hardcore punk guy, like doesn't care about anything. Just I'm focused about the music, man. I don't care if I get good reviews and a lot of people listen to me. I'm just all about the music. But as we have heard from, him growing up, he has a lot of internal problems, and he is a very sensitive person and does care about what other people think. But those two sort of ideas are they don't work together. So to try and separate that, he creates this Kurt persona, Kurdt, as the sort of the outer musician. I think even on Bleach, the album, it's credited as Kurt, Kurdt.
Yeah.
So
I think Novoselic has a different name too.
Yeah, it's Chris, Chris.
Yeah.
So similar vein. Anyway, those demo tapes they recorded were sent out. They sent it out to as many places as they could. Sub Pop Records, very interested, and they talked of a record deal. Sub Pop, it specialized in niche indie punk scene in the Northwest, eventually developing into the full grunge movement. Sub Pop agrees to release Love Buzz as a single, although Kurt was kind of apprehensive because it was a cover. And then they made a contract which would take effect on January 1st, 1989, that the Nirvana had to release 3 albums in 3 years. And we know that didn't happen because they switched record labels.
To Geffen, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
How do they get out of that contract?
We will get there.
Ooh.
Hang on to your butt.
None of this is in the movie, by the way. If you're listening,
Well-
spoilers also.
Well, okay, yeah. Well, it's a book.
dies.
I'm getting this from a book, so
Oh damn!
I'm
Maybe
getting-
we need to do the rest of the show.
this is coming from like a 400-page book, so a lot more detail.
Yeah.
Although the movie was like
2 hours.
a little over 2 hours.
2 hours and 11 minutes.
Yeah, so yeah, do what you can. June 11th and June 30th, they record 4 songs, and at this time they have a new drummer, Chad Channing, which Gus I know is fond of that name.
No, I'm not. It sounds he sounds like he'd be in like a frat house on campus
Chad
somewhere.
Channing.
Yeah, I'm Chad
Sup, bro?
Channing, man.
Chad Channing. Chad Channing.
I'm sure he's a nice guy.
Is he dead?
I don't know, actually. Could
Well,
be.
I'm sure if he was alive, or if he's alive, he's nice.
Yeah.
And if he was dead, he was
Super
nice
nice.
when he was alive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rip Chad.
Nirvana continued to do as many shows as possible, and this proved fruitful because they garnered an eventual fan base the old-fashioned way, relentless touring. In 1989, they played 100 gigs. So,
Holy crap.
also around this time, Kurt wrote this little song called "About a Girl." It was about his girlfriend Tracy.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I think I told Gus this, but
Yeah.
Tracy was like, "Yeah, I noticed you haven't written any songs about me," and Kurt kind of blew her off at the time. But then he wrote the song. It's like, okay, it's
that's
about
great.
you. So-
Tracy seems so nice too. I feel bad for her.
Oh yeah,
I know.
They don't really
Oh, yeah.
talk
It's
about
sad.
that, like their breakup either in the film.
yeah,
They just, I'm sure you'll get there, but
Yeah.
still, yeah.
She again, when I say financially supported Kurt, like if she was not there, then Kurt could not do what he did.
Go Tracy. Dang.
Yeah. So when about the time you wrote "About a Girl," Kurt sort of formed his own musical style, and sort of his musical influences came through. There was that punk influence from this band he really liked called the Melvins. He had that heavy metal influence that he listened to during his teenage years, and that sort of pop that he got from his childhood, like the Beatles. Christmas Eve of '98 and January of '99, they recorded an album. It was originally titled "Too Many Humans," but during a tour in California, they spotted this AIDS prevention poster that said "Bleach Your Works," and for some reason that struck Kurt's fancy, and he decided that the album would be called Bleach, which it is called, their first album, Nirvana. It was released on June 15th, 1989. So, we've all listened to the album.
Bleach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you guys
Supposedly.
think?
Bleach is a good album.
Bleach is the worst of the three.
Bleach is the
though,
worst of the
sadly.
three.
Yeah.
Just because it just like pales in comparison to the things that follow. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't
there's
even
just
know
an
how to put it.
obvious progression as albums go.
I don't even think it's
stylistically.
like a progression. I think it's just 0 to 60 from Bleach to Nevermind. It's just like night and day.
That's what I mean. Like the
There's no
improvement is visible.
Oh yeah,
in
yeah. Well, okay.
in terms
that
of
sense,
like
yeah.
songwriting.
But it wasn't like gradual. It's
No,
just
no,
like
no.
2 years, and they changed their sound almost entirely.
Oh yeah.
Because Bleach is very,
Raw.
very raw
Yeah,
and,
just
and
like
loud.
a distorted bass, lots of screams.
Lots of screams. I mean,
Yeah.
there's screams on every album,
Mhm.
so to speak.
Yeah, but Nevermind is probably the cleanest scream.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
compared-
Oh, yeah.
especially compared to Bleach.
Yeah, but speaking of how raw it sounds like, you can imagine them just jamming it in a garage and you being there and listening to that happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Uh,
There's some cool riffs,
Oh, yeah.
definitely, on the album.
I love Floyd the Barber. I think it's called.
Floyd the Barber's
Yeah.
cool. I like Negative Creep
Yeah.
and what is it? School is pretty cool.
Oh, here we
I
go.
really like Skull. That's
Is
one
that
of
the
my
one
favorites.
about recess?
Yeah. No recess.
recess. Okay, you said Love Buzz is a cover.
Yeah, it is.
Cover of what? I don't
Is
know.
it Melvin?
It's a song called It's probably a cover of a song called Love Buzz. Here, let me.
Shocking Blue.
Shocking Blue.
Shocking
I,
Blue.
Thank you, Mason.
I am
Love Buzz
unfamiliar
by
with
Shocking
them.
Blue. Yeah, no clue.
I think generally overall the album has a stronger first half. Agreed?
More memorable, I would say.
Okay.
For me, yeah.
I guess so. Paper Cuts is like really metally.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
I don't like for me. So that's kind of like just a standout based on that. I mean, it's a pretty decent song. But yeah. Oh, I didn't even know Big Cheese wasn't even originally.
Oh,
Bonus track.
And same
so
with
I guess
Downer.
Sifting is the last track.
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Interesting. That changes things for me because Big Cheese was my least favorite song.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Julian, what is this? Gower? I'm sorry. I wrote your name and I wrote it bad, so I don't know what it is. And maybe you're dead. Who knows? She wrote for The Rocket, which was an alternative magazine, I think in Seattle. She wrote that Bleach had no allegiance to thrash, garage, grunge, or metal. Like they mixed with all these
In a
different
good
styles,
way.
but it wasn't really, unite. There's no unity.
Yeah.
So
In Montage, they talk about how I think it was after they released their first single, they got a really poor review from
Yeah,
some
their
like
first
local
review
hipster magazine, and Kurt was
from-
not happy about that.
Some Michigan
again,
fanzine.
yeah, that
Yeah.
shows sort of like the
Zine.
dissonance between his public persona. Is like, I don't care about the critics, man.
Yeah.
But he was really like paranoid and really read as many reviews as he could and took it to heart. So, one other note I have about Bleach, I think the drums are serviceable. Like you could tell when Dave Grohl comes in, like it's a whole new world. Agreed?
Oh,
Or
I see what you're saying.
like I felt like it was the drums are just again serviceable. Like it was okay.
I see what you're saying.
Whereas like in Nevermind and in Utero, like you could point to drums like okay, that's kind of stand out.
Yeah.
And Nevermind, it's like iconic,
Yeah.
memorable, especially like some of the fills are so simple,
Mm-hmm.
but
they're
they're
so
so recognizable.
great,
yeah.
yeah.
And one of the things about Bleach for me is that it kind of sounds like I don't know the way to say it, but like a scene album. Like it sounds like it's just a result of the band playing lots of shows around
Mhm.
lots of other bands, and it just kind of sounds like part of a movement. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know you just said that whoever that lady was
Jillian.
disassociates them from all those genres, but I think it sounds a lot like early grunge, like
Yeah.
early
Mhm.
early Soundgarden is very very much in the same
Very
vein of
bleachy.
sorts. Yeah, not necessarily like singing wise or anything like that, but I would say like the real loud and hard sound.
I need to listen to Soundgarden. Everyone's saying like
Soundgarden's sick.
I only know Black Hole Sun, which is an awesome song.
Black Hole Sun. Yeah.
Won't you come?
Why don't you come? Yeah. Anyway.
So, Bleach, released June 15th, 1989. Around that time, Sub Pop and the Northwest music scene got a lot of attention internationally. That was sort of when, the grunge movement sort of formed itself. And it was sort of defined as that loud, distorted punk, specifically from the Northwest region. June 1989, Nirvana goes on its first major tour. And it's sort of all of those stereotypical tour things, like sleeping in vans, concerts of 12 people, no money, not eating, but when they did, it was crappy food, all that stuff. Also, which came out, Sterling speaking from the heart.
True.
Also at the time it was coming out, Kurt had a lot of stomach problems, and that plagued him his entire life. Sort of one reason you could say he had those problems was, the kind of diet he had on tour. A lot of fatty fried foods, no vegetables. Also didn't brush his teeth, which,
Gross.
or wash his hair. But,
Dude.
Wait, are you saying that was the reason he had them? Because it's not.
oh. No, I'm just saying, those are separate.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. Bleach gets a lot of college radio play.
Ooh.
Nirvana gains some success. They start having some shows with around 200 people. Start making some money, and they even planned their first European tour, which actually happened October 20th, 1989. It was called the Heavier Than Heaven Tour, which is where
That's a
the
great name.
biography got the name from. It was called that because they were touring with this other band called Tad, and the front man was around 300 pounds. And it was, I think it was one van, both bands, all equipment, and
Tad.
and Tad.
Dad,
Oh my God.
And again, he has stomach problems too, so they had to occasionally stop like every 10 minutes and have him throw up or something, or go to the bathroom. No, actually, Kurt was holding a bucket in the van. He was a dedicated Tad puke holder.
Tad puke guy.
Yeah.
That's just grotesque.
But this tour was insane. They did 37 shows in 42 days in 9 different countries.
Wow.
And again, all of them in one van, stuck with all the equipment.
Yeah, that's
no social media to set it up.
pretty crazy.
Back
That's
in the day.
the old school way to do it,
Yeah.
man.
They did not get a lot of money, but they got a lot
Sure.
of press. And consequently, at one point, they had more fans in the UK than the US, which is kind of interesting.
Wow.
But Nirvana's touring definitely strained Kurt's relationship with Tracy. Kurt sort of became more distant physically and emotionally. And in a 1-week period, Kurt and Tracy called it off, and they kicked Chad out of the band. So, yeah, a lot going on.
It's all your fault, Chad.
Yeah, and Kurt tended.
What I do, dude?
Yeah,
Dude, what the hell?
Kurt tended to be very passive in sort of kicking people out of the band. And basically, the way they would kick people out is just not call them back to practice. Like, they didn't call them and say, okay, you're out of the band. Just like, we just never call them back.
Well,
So, not confrontational.
he's like in his room right now, like on a practice pad. Like, come on, guys, I'm ready.
Kurt's dead? What?
Dude.
He didn't call me back.
But Kurt is now infatuated with someone else, Toby Vale, who was a musician in the band Bikini Kill. They had very, very similar musical interests. Toby was very influential on Kurt, and Kurt consequently warmed up to a lot of feminist and formal punk ideology. Still a lot of conflict between the inner and outer Kurt. In a journal entry, he says, quote, "Everything I do is an overly conscious and neurotic attempt at trying to prove to others that I am at least more intelligent and cool than they think." So, again, sort of
Damn.
typifies, his thinking. Kurt Cobain, once off Sub Pop, and he wants to go on a major label, but he's conflicted, again, because it ain't punk to go mainstream. So,
yeah. Always
We
a
should talk
reservation.
about that little crisis there
what?
in a second. The whole like punk or not thing with Nirvana.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Buzz Osborne of the Melvins introduces Dave Grohl to Nirvana. Dave is 21 at the time, and right off the bat, they're like, okay, this is it. This is our final drummer. Grohl is like animalistic on the drums. He's crazy. On their first show, he broke a snare because he has hit it so hard. Eventually, he moves in with Kurt. Interesting story. So Toby was in Bikini Kill, as well as another musician, Kathleen Hanna. Kurt was dating Toby. Dave was dating Kathleen. Kathleen Hanna writes on the wall,
Yeah.
Kurt smells like Teen Spirit. And Teen Spirit was a deodorant that Toby was using, implying that, they had sex and then
Yeah.
Kurt now smelled like the deodorant. So, smells like Teen Spirit. Definitely stuck in Kurt's mind, as you know.
Yeah.
He didn't know that it was a deodorant brand. Is the
I think so,
story.
yeah.
Yeah, which is weird. But
It's a good name.
I wonder, like, when that song came out, if Teen Spirit was like,
Popular.
no, or they like, hey, we're suing you, or
yeah.
you better give us some of the money. But anyway,
Or we're bankrupt and we can't do anything.
Yeah,
Because
I
no
don't
one
even think
remembers
they're
us
around
anymore.
anymore.
Yeah. So,
anyway,
in November, Toby breaks up with Kurt, and Kurt is devastated. Again, Toby is really ingrained in that formal punk, so she's like, there's no formal dating. It's all sort of just like up in the air, Whereas Kurt, he definitely wants like a very intimate relationship. Kurt, he ends up writing a lot of songs about Toby. This is a very dark period for him, but it was artistically fruitful. The song Aneurysm, the song Formula, which later became Drain You, Lounge Act, Lithium was repurposed to fit Toby, and Smells Like Teen Spirit, again, Toby influenced. So, yeah. In fall 1990, Kurt Cobain tries heroin for the first time. And he was hooked from that point on, to say the least. Also, speaking of, the difference between Kurt and Kurt, K-U-R-D-T, in his journal, whenever he talked about heroin, he would spell it Heroine, as sort of like a female persona. Again, trying to differentiate the drug from sort of that ideal punk lifestyle. He signs with DGC, which is an imprint of Geffen Records, and with Gold Mountain Management on the suggestion of Sonic Youth. They record their next album at Sound City Studio outside LA with producer Butch Vig. January 12th,
Butch.
1990. Two people meet. Kurt Cobain and Courtney Love meet for the first time. Yeah, it's really interesting how they first meet. So Courtney gives like this like flirtatious insult to Kurt, and the next thing you know, they're like wrestling on the floor, and everyone's around there's like, what the hell is going on? The second time they meet, they like do the same thing, and it's like, but it's a lot more sexual. It's really weird. They actually bonded. The second time they met, they bonded over cough syrup because they were both on cough syrup. But apparently Courtney's brand was a lot better, so Kurt's like, yeah, you got to hook me up with that. So they exchanged numbers. Courtney is also in a band called Hole. I'm not listened to any of their stuff.
Me either.
I've listened to like a few songs, but never like a full album. But,
Hole.
yeah.
Courtney had a boyfriend at the time, bandmate Eric Erlandson, and also she was in a long-distance relationship with Billy Corgan of Smashing Pumpkins.
Oh my God! Really?
Yes.
No
I never knew
way.
that.
Yes.
That's hilarious.
Holy cow.
Now you know.
Billy
That is
Corgan
so
is quite a
funny.
character. I'm surprised he doesn't like.
He's a weird guy.
Yeah.
Well, we should do a show on him.
Speaking of
Yeah.
Kurt Cobain, he was like, "Me and Kurt were the best songwriters of our generation." And it's like, well, I can see that with Kurt. Not that Billy Corgan is a bad
Yeah, sure.
songwriter, but I don't know about the greatest of his generation.
Smashing Pumpkins.
June 1991. Butch Vig finishes Nevermind, which was originally called Sheep. Kurt picked a name because it was a metaphor for life, and because it was grammatically incorrect, and because it was a line from Teen Spirit. They continued touring relentlessly, continued drug use relentlessly. Kurt. They went on a European tour with Sonic Youth. Kurt bumps into Courtney Love at the time because Hole was also playing at Reading, not the 1992 album. And then, September 24th, 1991, one of the greatest albums of all time dropped, arguably. Nevermind.
It's okay.
5 out of 10.
Are we talking about it now?
Yes.
All right.
It's a darn good album.
Oh, yeah. It's probably
How darn good.
now one of my favorites. That darn good. It's so darn good.
That you don't know where to start.
I don't even know
My
what to
history
say.
with Nevermind has been a fluctuating one. Sometimes I really like it, and then other times I listen to it, I'm like, I mean, it's good, but it doesn't interest me that much. But this most recent listen, I'm back into it. Maybe it's after, like with watching the
Huh.
Montage of Heck.
For me, I talked about, not being impressed with Teen Spirit when I first, listened to it. But once I fell in love with Nevermind, yeah, I've always loved it.
Yeah, when did you change your mind about Smells Like Teen Spirit?
Probably late high school. Or with Nirvana in general. Again, you got to sort of listen to a lot of music and accumulate that vocabulary. So when you get to something like this, you're like, okay, I get it.
Yeah. And honestly, this album is pretty accessible, too, in
Mhm.
terms of...
Oh, yeah.
Out of the three,
Yeah, oh, yeah. It's
hands down.
definitely the most appropriate for, like, I guess someone who's coming in to listening to music that's slightly more edgy or more interesting or, like you said, experimental, which this is not very experimental at all. And out of the three albums, it's definitely the most
Like,
straightforward.
Yeah. A more pop, most pop. A lot
Yeah.
of Kurt's pop sensibilities come out here.
And it is killer.
Yeah.
Knocks it out of the park.
I appreciate how consistent it is throughout. I mean, it's just stacked with great songs.
I don't think there's a song in here I don't like.
Yeah.
Same.
I mean, I can definitely pick ones that I like more than others. Say,
Yeah, what are some of your favorites?
On a Plane, I love. Come As You Are, Lithium's great. One song that I used to not like, which over the past week I've grown
Is it Drain You?
more accustomed to. Actually, Drain You too, but also Polly. I didn't like Polly.
Oh, yeah.
Like ever, but I like Polly now. A little bit more. My least favorite song is Stay Away, though.
Yeah, same.
Which one?
Same.
Stay Away.
Oh,
Stay Away.
I like Stay Away.
What you just said, like, oh, everything's good, and I just agreed with you.
But if
my
you
least
pick
favorite
one, pick,
is Stay
what
Away.
is your least favorite?
My least favorite?
Yeah, if you had to.
Endless, nameless.
No, out of the 12.
Okay.
Right?
Oh, that's tough. Least favorite?
Oh, you know what?
That's probably Stay Away.
One of my least favorite songs is apparently one of your favorites from when we talked about this last time.
Lounge Act?
Lounge Act? What?
I think Lounge Act is the most forgettable track on the entire album.
Get out
The
of
bass
here.
at the beginning.
I think
Whistle that
it's
riff.
the most forgettable track, but I like it still. I like it better than
I don't
Stay
believe
Away.
you.
You don't
If you
believe
liked
me.
it, it'd be one of your favorites, like us.
Is Lounge Act your second least favorite?
No, I would probably give that to Polly. I like Polly.
Yeah.
It's grown on
Yeah.
me. But I used to not like Polly at all. I used to think it was annoying. But yeah.
Sterling, some of your favorites.
My favorites are probably Drain You.
So you like Drain You now?
Yeah, like this week alone. Like you were saying, that's what I thought you were talking about it. And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, me too.
No, like I
love
forgot
Drain You.
about that like part in the middle of Drain You.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it, and it starts like picking up and
No, I never forgot that because I
Intensity.
jammed Drain You so much
Dude,
on Rock Band 2
Territorial
for
Pissings.
Wii. Yeah.
Territorial Pissings, Drain
Territorial
You,
Pissing is great.
On a Plane, In Bloom. Those are my favorites.
Okay. My favorites. Lounge Act, In Bloom, Yeah.
Lithium.
Everything
Also
else was
awesome.
3. They're all equally good. Again, not a song I don't like. All the songs have some great pop hook or memorable guitar riff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is Chet Powers? It says there. For
He
writing
wrote
on
that
Territorial
beginning
Distance.
part. Come on, people now.
Oh,
Come
yeah.
on, your brother. Yeah, whatever song that's from.
Everybody get together.
So Gus, earlier you were saying how I thought it was unanimous that Nevermind was considered their best, but you told me that there's some people that think In
I've
Utero
met
is better.
so many people who are like, In Utero is my
Yeah,
favorite.
same. Shout out to Kiefer.
That's so weird.
Kiefer,
He's a huge Garena.
shout
He's a
out
huge Nirvana fan.
High school people I don't talk to anymore.
Yeah, exactly. In Utero is his favorite, and he's a huge Nirvana fan. And his dad's a huge Nirvana fan too, and I believe In Utero is his favorite as well.
I think casual fans will like Nevermind more.
What the hell? are
But
you
the
trying
more
to say?
hardcore fans will
Filthy
like.
casual.
No, Nevermind is my favorite. Like I'm not
Filthy
I'm not a
casual.
hardcore Nirvana guy,
Get out of here.
but I like Nirvana.
You don't even like Lounge Act. That's how casual
I do
you
like
are.
Lounge Act. It's just forgettable. Took me a long time to remember.
So, after 4 weeks, Nevermind reaches number 35 on the Billboard Top 40. Geffen presses less than 50,000 copies, and they did not anticipate how big it would get. So for a while, Nevermind was completely sold out, and you could not find it anywhere.
Oh my god.
Around that time, Smells Like Teen Spirit music video debuts on MTV, and all this sort of propelled Nirvana, and they were straight up considered famous at this point.
Oh my god.
Kurt, very conflicted on sort of that fame status.
I think they all were.
Yeah. Kurt especially.
Yeah.
Because, again, very sensitive. He was unnerved and very panicked by, the reputation they now had. But one thing happened that was good to Kurt from his perspective. Courtney Love breaks up with Billy. Sorry. And sort of solidifies the relationship between the two. They shared very similar childhoods growing up, so Kurt felt like Courtney really understood him, and that's something he really longed for in a relationship. Kurt, like I mentioned, is a lot more passive-aggressive, while Courtney is just straight-up aggressive and sort of acted as his mouthpiece in social situations. Also, they do heroin together. Around this time, Kurt decides that he's going to use heroin on a daily basis, and his rationale is to alleviate his stomach pains, but he's really, addicted. But in the book, Krist Novoselic makes a point, says, quote, Courtney did not get Kurt on drugs, which I think is true. Kurt had already been doing it at this point, so. But they sort of, played on each other's destructive tendencies.
They enabled one another.
Yes, that's the word. Perfect. So, Nirvana launches their Nevermind tour. At this time, sales increased to 500,000. November 28th, 1 million sales. Kurt gets a gold record, but he's actually still homeless at this time, which is pretty crazy. Waiting for those there was a delay, waiting for those royalties to come in and stuff. But yeah,
Holy cow.
January 1992, Nirvana plays on SNL. As you saw, Chris and Kurt, they do a French kiss.
Okay, pause.
Okay.
Is that punk? Not kissing, playing on SNL.
Oh,
Think about that. Let's talk about it for a second.
That ain't punk.
Not that it really matters. But
that's
like,
mainstream.
Yeah.
Wait,
Do you think
so-
do you think Kurt had to be convinced to play SNL?
Oh, yes. Yes. And
So
anytime.
is that a label decision? Probably.
Is that something that was said in the book? Like he had to make the decision because you said he watched SNL growing up.
Yeah.
What if he was always like, oh, I want to play that?
That'd be
song.
I can't recall specifically, but I do know every time they wanted him to go headline a tour or do an interview or appear on a television special, like he did not want to do it, and they had to sort of
Yeah, I
convince
heard
him to get into that. So
Especially interviews.
he
Oh my god.
did not like interviews. But yeah, Kurt, he skips out on the cast party. That same night, Nevermind pushes Michael Jackson's Dangerous out of number 1 spot. Also that same night, speaking of Dangerous, that same night, Kurt overdoses on heroin, which I believe is the first time. At that point, he was using heroin on a daily basis, and everyone was concerned, but they did not know how to handle it, which kind of reminded me of Amy Winehouse. I saw the Amy, the documentary that also came out last
Still
year.
haven't seen that. Heard it's
Yeah.
good, though.
Similar sort of situation where everyone kind of felt like she had a problem, but didn't really know how to handle it.
You gotta feel bad too, because like you said, Courtney Love is kind of an enabler in a sense.
Yeah.
And it's not really good to be around someone like that if you're already so troubled yourself.
To be fair, Kurt also enabled Courtney as well. Like there were some periods where she was clean and wanted to get off, but then Kurt got it back into it, and then vice versa too. So, February 24th, 1992, Kurt and Courtney marry on Waikiki Beach, Hawaii. At this time, Courtney was pregnant, and Kurt was terrified because they were using heroin, and also he had a fascination with flipper babies when he was growing up, which were like babies who were grown like without arms really grown, so they look like they have little flippers. And he was obsessed with that and would like draw it all the time. And he was terrified that, because of his past, it'd come back and haunt him have a flipper baby. So.
Oh my God.
Also, interesting, Kurt's they did not invite family, and Chris and his girlfriend Shelley were not invited to the wedding. Which
Dave was?
Whoa.
I don't think Dave went either. Yeah, it was a sort of.
Was it like private? Was that why?
Not really. It was just that was the point where there's this rift growing between Kurt and the band.
Oh.
Yeah, and they have a lot of tensions in the band, which we'll get to. April 6th, 1992, Nirvana on the cover of Rolling Stone. Again, something I'm sure Kurt had to be convinced to do.
Is that punk?
Is that more or less punk than playing on SNL?
Ask Green Day if that's punk.
I say SNL is less punk than Rolling Stone. I would
Okay.
probably say. I would say so, yeah.
I guess because
Dude, network
one's
television
a music
that's
show,
1 year.
and then one is a music magazine.
Yeah.
Then again, Rolling Stone's super lame.
Sounds like the epitome of music capitalism.
Yeah.
So
August 18th, 1992, Frances Bean Cobain is born in Los Angeles.
Oh.
She's born healthy, though tabloids run headlines like "Rock star's baby is born a junkie." But you know who was a junkie? Kurt. He was 105 pounds.
It's uncalled for.
He was 105
Dude.
pounds and connected to an IV in the same hospital her daughter was born. He even overdosed a couple days after Frances was born in the same hospital,
Holy cow.
which is insane. In September, Vanity Fair runs an article by Lynn Hirschberg, which detailed the drug problems in the Cobain marriage. Consequently, Child Services got involved, and they eventually required a court-appointed guardian to be with Frances for Kurt and Courtney to see her. August 30th, 1992, Reading Festival, headlined by Nirvana. And this is when Kurt plays the whole junkie mythos and is wheeled out in a wheelchair. He has that medical smock on, a white wig. And by all accounts, that performance is considered one of their best. They did a 25-song set that spanned their entire catalog. And we watched a little bit. And there's a little bit in the documentary Montage of Heck.
Yeah.
It's at the beginning
Yeah.
and at the end.
September 1992, they play at MTV's Video Music Awards. Not very punk.
Damn.
Kurt wanted to play this new song he came up. It was a little ditty called "Rape Me."
Oh yeah, no, I've heard about this.
Very controversial, and you can understand why the MTV heads were like, "Yeah, we don't know about airing a song called "Rape Me," where you say "rape me" a lot in the song." They fought a lot, and then in the rehearsal, Nirvana ends up playing "Lithium." So MTV's like, "Okay, we're cool," but they're really tense because when they go live,
Yeah.
Kurt could pull something. So they tell like all the, video people like if you hear the opening chorus of "Rape Me," you shut it down, cut the commercial. Night of the Music Awards, Nirvana comes up. They played the beginning of "Rape Me," and as they're reaching to shut the commercial, they switch to "Lithium."
That's awesome.
Nice.
So again, playing on the man being very punk. That's
hilarious,
punk, I
yeah.
guess, right?
Oh yeah, that's cool. Good job, guys. Not that I'm to say, but still, very funny.
October 24th, 1992, they start work on their third album. It's tentatively called "I Hate Myself and I Want to Die." Later changed to verse, chorus, verse, and then finally "In Utero," which was a line from one of Courtney Love's poems. Courtney actually helped a lot with the lyrics in this album, and it's considered more tight and less obscure. Yes?
The lyrics?
In Utero?
I
Something like
guess I
Heart-Shaped
can see
Box
that.
is It's a lot more straightforward.
Or all
Yeah.
apologies.
Yeah.
It's a lot less like just scatterbrained.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I
Like-
guess I understand that Kurt wrote lyrics kind of last minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
And changed them a
That's,
lot.
that's
Changed them
what
a
he
lot.
claims. He's like, yeah, the lyrics are the last things I do. Sometimes I write it like
Yeah.
30 minutes before
Oh,
we
the lyrics
record.
were the last thing I do.
Do, man. Yeah.
That's how he talks. He got that
I know,
really
yeah.
low voice. Yeah.
So they recorded the third album at Pachyderm Studios in Minnesota in 12 days.
Pachyderm.
Yeah. Kurt wanted a raw sound, sort of differentiate itself from Nevermind. And finally, September 21st, 1993, In Utero was released, Nirvana's final studio album, which Sterling listened to
Rip.
for the first time recently, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for the first time.
Yeah, all the way through basically. Yeah.
Okay.
And what did you guys think?
I love it. It's awesome.
This is great.
Very close to Nevermind.
I only listened to this album one time back in like senior year of high school, and I was like doing homework at the time or something, so I didn't even remember that much, other than like a few tracks. Like All Apologies is probably still my favorite Nirvana song,
Whoa.
Awesome.
and
Ooh, we can talk about that too.
Tourette's I always thought was funny.
Yeah, yeah.
But going back to it, I really like it a lot. It's really good. I found some gems I missed, like Serve the Servants.
Yeah.
That's one of my
Missed the
favorites on
first
here.
track.
Yeah.
Serve the Servants. Penny Royalty I used to not like. It's
Penny
another
Royalty's
one.
awesome,
Yeah,
yeah.
Penny Royalty's great. Heart-Shaped Box.
Heart-Shaped Box I had listened to for a long time.
Mhm,
Like, it was kind of
mhm.
a popular song, I guess.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
All
it was,
Apologies,
yeah.
too. But Francis Farmer will have her revenge on Seattle. I think it's awesome.
Yeah,
So cool.
it's real good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so overall the album is a return to that more raw sound. Overall it's a darker tone. And yeah, overall it's a very strong album. Definitely, you would say second best after Nevermind.
I would
yeah.
say so, yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I've never listened to gallons of rubbing alcohol flow through the strip.
Yeah, I
Bonus
have
track.
not either.
7.5 minutes.
On non-American pressings. Interesting. Yeah, that is one I am not familiar with. Why is Tourette's lowercase?
I don't know. That's interesting.
bothers
on
me.
Wikipedia. Is it on Genius?
I don't
No, it's
No.
not.
No, it's not.
See the lyrics.
Just some silly editor on Wiki.
Interesting.
Mean Heart, Cold Heart, times 7.
Oh yeah, that moderate rock. He says it's moderate rock at the beginning.
Moderate rock.
Yeah. And then you do not get moderate rock. Surprising, surprise. Yeah. Anything else on In Utero? Didn't you guys were talking about something about Green Day and like how they?
Oh, yeah.
I looked
Sterling
it
had
up,
this
dude.
weird
No.
comparison.
No, this is not weird at all. Okay, hear me
Weird
out.
analogy.
So, Kerplunk is
Is
to Bleach,
which
as
isn't even
Dookie
right.
is to Nevermind, as Insomniac is to In Utero. And also, I looked it up. Kerplunk and Bleach very close in sales.
Very close in
yeah,
sales.
both around like 5 million.
So, I guess in a way, like, so you're saying like Dookie and Nevermind coincide as the most popular.
And also being like the follow-up to the more like the independent one, and then they follow that one up with the more edgy one.
But Green Day already had an album out before Kerplunk.
Yes, I know.
Which throws your entire analogy in the gutter.
Mason's on your
Still
side.
alive.
Mason is
too.
on my side. That was for you, Sterling, not me. He just did a thumbs down.
No one
Julius
understands
Caesar
my
style.
analogies. What the hell?
All right.
Who's Green Day? Who's that?
They're still alive, dude.
They're still alive? Oh.
In Utero entered the charts at number 1. It sold 180,000 copies in the first week. Kurt agreed to tour despite protests. And again, yeah, Kurt was obsessed with reading reviews, especially for In Utero. Again, Punk Persona was like, I don't care, but he was obsessed with reading them. November 18th, 1993. You know what happened then?
November 18th?
Yeah, 1993.
Is that when he oh wait,
He died in 94.
is that when he canceled it, or is that MTV?
MTV Unplugged
Okay.
was recorded. Again,
Just tell us.
November 18th, 1993. And that is the final album we will be talking about from Nirvana's discography. Live album. It was called acoustic, but they had amps and all that jazz, so I think it was described like it's just a toned down Nirvana.
Yeah,
it's not
it's
not
like
acoustic.
chill.
Yeah.
It's not technically acoustic, but they're playing acoustic guitars.
Yeah.
Also, who is the other guy
Pat Smear?
Yeah.
Pat Smear, he was a part of the band The Germs, Darby Crash, who also killed himself. They were like, I think late 70s or something. They only had one album. And then I guess he just did a bunch of like session work, and then he kind of became a part of the whole Nirvana crew. And so he was in Foo Fighters for a while.
Yeah, okay.
And stuff like
I
that.
thought he looked familiar.
So, what do you guys think of MTV Unplugged? The performance.
It's cool.
It's quite impressive.
Yeah.
Quite impressive. Kurt has a great voice,
Yeah.
even live.
Oh,
So
yeah. It really feels like an event, too. That's what I like about it. In
Yeah.
terms of being kind of monumental feeling, you know what I mean?
it kind of made About a Girl into
Yeah.
like a popular song, so to speak.
I think this version is the one that's in Guitar Hero 4. or
I think
something
so,
like that.
yeah. Also, noticeably less hits, including no Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, a choice.
I think yeah. When they walked off after Where Did You Sleep Last Night, the MTV producers were like, "Do an encore, do Teen Spirit," and Kurt's like, "No, I'm done."
No.
I'm done.
I'm pretty sure at the beginning, too, they're like, Chris was like leaning over to Kurt or something. They're like, what song should we play? And then some girls like, Teen Spirit. And a bunch of people like start yelling.
Oh,
songs.
yeah, I remember that.
But
Teen Spirit.
yeah, there's some really cool highlights. Man Who Sold the World, David Bowie cover,
Yeah.
really neat.
Really awesome.
Penny Royalty, this Kurt by himself.
It's a cool cover.
Kurt by himself, really cool.
Tell me about Jesus Doesn't Want Me for a Sunbeam.
There's that weird instrument in there. It sounds synth. Like, what is that? Do you know what I'm talking about at
I
the
have
very
no
beginning?
idea.
No.
Okay, never mind.
Look,
They're
yeah,
like-
look down. Additional musicians.
There's like
Go down slightly.
violins and stuff. Oh, there's cello.
Maybe
Nah, I'm just imagining in my head.
Accordion.
accordion.
Oh, okay, it's accordion.
Thanks,
That's
Mason.
it. That's it.
I don't even see it up there. Anyway.
Chris on accordion.
Oh,
on
Chris.
track 3. There you go. That's what made that weird noise. I was like, what is that coming from? That's not a guitar. Yeah. If we saw the actual performance, we'd be like, oh, accordion right there. But we just listened to it. Yeah. It's hard to miss.
Accordion.
I love the 3 covers they did of Meat Puppets.
Meat Puppets songs.
I'm like, I want to go and listen to their album now.
Never
Meat
listened to
Puppets 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty
have,
good.
Have you listened to it?
I have.
No.
I like it.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. All 3 songs, Plateau, Omi, Lake of Fire, I thought were rad.
Nice.
All Apologies, again, another highlight. But for me, I think the best song.
Is Where Did You Sleep Last Night?
Yeah.
Really?
I really like that.
Wow.
Yeah. It's so moody. It highlights
good.
Kurt
It is
Cobain's
really good.
vocals the best. Robert Christgau, famous rock critic, likened Kurt's vocal performance to John Lennon in Plastic Ono Band. And he also noted that it is also more remarkable because this was all in one take. And apparently all the other MTV Unplugged they did multiple takes sometimes, but Nirvana all the way through. Yeah, that last scream is so haunting. Yeah, you could tell Kurt's putting everything into that. So
Have you listened to any other MTV Unplugged albums?
Eric Clapton.
Because there's some lame ones. Like Kiss. There's a Kiss
Oh.
MTV acoustic set that is just
so
not
weird.
good at all.
Yeah, I've listened
In
to.
my opinion.
Unplugged?
It's Kiss Unplugged. If I
Ew.
yeah. If I remember correctly.
Jeez. Yeah,
Eric Clapton's good. But what are some of your favorites?
Definitely All Apologies.
Mm-hmm.
Love that
All
song.
Apologies. Penny Royalty it has a great version.
Yeah.
Lake of Fire. I'll agree on Where Did You Sleep Last Night. That one's really good.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah.
About a Girl. It's great. My least favorite song is probably Jesus Don't Want Me for a Sunbeam.
Yeah. But it's Vaselines, man. Kurt loves the Vaselines.
He does.
Yeah. But you don't, I guess.
I've never listened to them,
Okay.
so I haven't even listened to the original version of that song.
Didn't they do Molly's Lips?
Is that a Vaseline song?
I think
'Cause
so.
Yes, they have.
Okay.
That's actually a pretty awesome song.
Yeah.
Nirvana's covered that too. You
Yep.
saying?
Yep. Yeah. One other note I have is just being a more stripped down. It definitely showcases, Kurt's superb guitar work. It definitely focuses on that. It stands out. Anyway, back to our little narrative. MTV Unplugged. Kurt, before the performance, was very nervous. he wanted people he knew sitting in the front row, sort of quell his fears. At the time, he was also going through withdrawal. Around that period, he was continued to do heroin, in addition to coke, meth, prescription narcotics, Valium, and tranquilizers. The whole smorgasbord. And I mentioned this to Gus, but in the biography, the author mentions in 1993 alone, Kurt had as many as a dozen overdoses and near-death situations. So,
93.
Yeah, in that year alone. And again, it became the new norm, to find Kurt high off his mind and also, occasionally overdose. So, also, the stomach problems were still persisting. He was throwing up blood and bile. But despite all that, like I mentioned before, single take, and he killed. January 1994, a recording session at Robert Lang Studios in Seattle. They laid down 11 songs, including You Know You're Right. Have you guys heard that song?
No.
I don't think so.
That I've listened to it recently because I heard it mentioned here, but it's quickly becoming one of my favorites of all of their songs. So I'll play it afterwards. If you haven't heard it, everyone listening, you should, because it's real cool. Nirvana begins their In Utero tour, or they continue it in Europe. Kurt, at this time, very extreme desperation, panic, and defeatism. Kurt explicitly states he's going to break up the band, fire his management, and divorce with with Courtney Love. And Kurt Cobain he had a lifelong, when we think of Kurt, it's just like, heroin use, addicted, killed himself. But he was also suffering from lifelong depression, sort of those unresolved psychological childhood problems. It was that, in addition to the drug use, that sort of, drove him mad. March 4th, in the Hotel Excelsior in Rome, Courtney Love finds Kurt on the floor with blood coming out of his nose. Kurt had overdosed on champagne and Rohypnol, and it was unique because Courtney found a 3-page note in his hand, which had a line, quote, "Like Hamlet, I have to choose between life and death." Not only was this an overdose, it was a straight-up attempted suicide. Later it was found Kurt took 60 Rohypnol pills, and the public media was told that it was an accidental overdose, but in truth it was his first suicide attempt. Nirvana's career, for all intents and purposes, was over. Kurt canceled the In Utero tour. He turned down headlining the Lollapalooza tour. He refused to practice and continued his heavy drug use. There were multiple rehab and intervention attempts by this point, but none succeeded. Very sad story I'm about to tell. Last time Chris saw Kurt alive, Kurt Cobain was to fly to LA for treatment. Chris had to physically drag Kurt, kicking and screaming, through the airport. Kurt punches Chris, yells "fuck you," and runs away. And that was the last time Chris saw Kurt.
Damn.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So
That's really sad.
yeah.
What about Dave?
Dave, we'll get to. Well, we mentioned before, like Dave is oddly out of the story the whole time because he wasn't interviewed for the film Montage of Heck, and also for the biography, which is odd. Again, I think it's just him not wanting to. It's too emotional, bringing up those past memories. That's my only theory, but.
Or if Courtney had something to do with the making of these two things, they aren't friends.
Yeah,
So, maybe. You didn't find anything about Dave at all?
no, I didn't get a chance to, but
Bummer.
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, if someone does a sit-down interview of that whole Nirvana career, we'll get another huge side of the story, which would be great. Kurt eventually agrees to go to treatment at the Exodus Recovery Center in LA. When Kurt arrives, the day before, Joe Walsh of the Eagles had left. And when he gets there, Gibby Haynes of the Butthole Surfers is there, so they kind of bond and hang out. Kurt is in denial that he has a heroin problem, but he sort of becomes more calm and serene over time. One day, Kurt calls Courtney, who I believe was on tour at the time, and tells her that he thought her new album was great, which confused Courtney because that album was not even out yet. Later that day, he jumps over the facility wall, takes a plane back to Seattle. He sat next to Duff McKagan of Guns N' Roses.
Weird.
Yeah.
Especially since they're Axel and
Yeah. Not on good
Kurt
terms.
weren't friends. Yeah.
And Kurt tells Duff that he is, quote, going home. So, on April 2nd, Kurt Cobain arrives at home. There are scattered sightings of him for the next couple of days. Courtney and other friends, they search frantically. I think they even hire a couple detectives to look for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. April 5th, Kurt Cobain enters a greenhouse. On his estate, he does some Mexican black heroin, sticks a shotgun in his mouth, and kills himself.
Allegedly.
We'll get to that. He leaves a suicide note. He quotes a Neil Young song, Hey, Hey, My, Into the Black, stating, it's better to burn out than fade away. I have two other quotes here, which, again, testament to sort of his sensitive personality. He has empathy in all quotes. I mean, all caps and an exclamation point, and the quote, too much love. So, yes, he did care about people, very sensitive, but he couldn't sort of reconcile that with his rock persona, heavy drug use, all that stuff. And then on April 8th, his body was found. And the rest is history. Finn.
Nicely done.
So, Gus, something you mentioned. Courtney, you said Kurt allegedly killed himself.
I saw a movie. And it's called Soaked in Bleach.
Never heard of it.
And it is about the possibility that Courtney Love might have had something to do with the death of Kurt Cobain. And actually, about her hiring a private eye, that's like the whole crux of the story. Is so she hired this dude, and he had a really great record as a private eye. And so he starts looking into trying to find out where Kurt is and whatnot. And then I'm just gonna give a quick synopsis. So I'm skipping a lot of details, but basically he got to a point where he told Courtney, it's like, Courtney, I'm finding some things that you're probably not happy with me knowing about, but I'm not going to stop trying to find where Kurt is or what happened to Kurt, because this would after he was found at that point. But so yeah, there's a lot of interesting things you find out about Courtney Love and this guy named Dylan, who's a friend of a bunch of people in that scene at that time.
Yeah, he bought the shotgun for Kurt.
He bought the shotgun that Kurt Cobain
That's interesting.
allegedly used, and he's also supposedly the last person to see Kurt Cobain alive.
Interesting.
But so I'm obviously in no place to make a judgment on it, whether or not someone is a murderer. And also, there's also one part in the movie, and apparently this was a pretty big deal at the time. So the private detective gets a tour of the house that Kurt Cobain killed himself, or the land he killed himself at, or the property. And Dylan is his guide, and Dylan doesn't take him to the place where he killed himself.
Yeah, that's weird.
And people asked him, why didn't you ask to go into this big? Because it's a pretty noticeable building. It's not like it was a little shack or anything, at least on the property. But he was but the private detective was like, it was a rainy day. I couldn't see it. And so just to refute that or refute the claims that he's a bozo, basically. The film is they go there on a rainy day, and it's yep, I can see how it's kind of hard to see when it's rainy. It's that's not really convincing me at all, but I don't know. It's kind of interesting. Soaked in Bleach.
Would you say that film is better
out.
than Montage of Heck?
No, because Montage of Heck is at least verifiable. We don't know, with Soaked in Bleach.
Okay.
Whether it's really happened or not. I don't like Courtney Love. But that don't mean she's a murderer. Oh, yeah. Speaking of which, Montage of Heck, you see a lot of Courtney that you don't want to see. It's kind of gross.
In more ways than one.
In more ways than one, yeah. But, yeah, let's get into Montage of Heck.
I think this film is excellent.
It's very good.
Yeah.
The thing that struck me the most was sort of its style. Again, we mentioned they had a lot of animated sequences.
It's quite hectic. Its
Heck.
style.
Montage-like, you can say.
Montage-like.
A lot of, archival footage, concert footage, interviews, and also straight up interviews with the people in
And
Kurt's
audio
life.
recordings.
The music is amazing. They have a lot of like cool covers and instrumental versions,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Wait.
Gus is going
Important.
crazy.
I'm reading this right now.
Yeah.
The Wikipedia
Oh,
page is
no.
up. The documentary is directed by Brett Morgan, who began work on it in 2007 when Cobain's widow, Courtney Love, approached him with the idea.
Oh,
So,
my
yeah,
God.
maybe that really is why Dave Grohl isn't in this, because
That's interesting. Yeah.
they are, yeah.
Maybe that's why you see her boobs so much. She was like,
Yeah.
the only way I'm gonna be in this movie is if you show my titties.
What the hell was that?
That's how
That's my Courtney impression.
Yeah, that's how she approached.
It's
the
pretty
director,
spot on.
Brett
In
Morgan.
2007.
Yeah. But I kind of noticed that too, because reading the Cross biography, Kurt's mother Wendy was not. She seemed in a lot better light in Montage of Heck, whereas in the biography it was a more complicated picture, where even Kurt said at one point he had equal contempt for his mother and father, whereas I think in the Montage of Heck it seemed like Wendy was of the two parents, Wendy was like the good person.
Oh yeah.
and Don was not.
Like, briefly touch on Don, and he's like this shady guy, and he's got like this new like wife. And
He's
all this
grabbing that
stuff.
armchair.
Yeah, that one shot of his hand grabbing the chair.
But yeah, basically the only parts of him are his wife like hinting at like, I thought I was in love at the time, and such like that, and then also he berated Kurt. And
Yeah.
that was pretty much Don's part in the movie. I mean, he was actually interviewed, wasn't he?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, just for like
He was
briefly.
one part.
One
yeah,
part.
and his wife. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the stepmom.
Yeah.
And then going back to the animation, it has an interesting style. Like it felt almost rotoscope because it felt so natural, the movement. Like you can imagine like they had actual actors, live action actors act this out, and then he had an animator go over and draw
Like
it.
those little puffball suits.
Yeah, so it felt like real movement, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's this one major montage in the middle that's very frenetic, and like the music is loud the whole time, and it sort of parallels their rise to fame. And then like they do interesting stuff like suddenly cutting to quiet to like an interview, and I'm loving that contrast there. And then overall, what else? Oh, one quick note: that ending is killer, no pun intended.
Killer.
How they don't really get into the actual suicide. They just cut off and
It's really
say.
surprising too, because I feel like that's what everyone's kind of expecting going into it.
That's
They're
when
like,
it leads
"Can't
into
wait,"
Soaked in Bleach, the second part of the story. Yeah.
But I think they kind of play on that where there's so much mythos and so much has already been built around the actual suicide that you don't.
Yeah.
It's like there's nothing. Is there anything more for him to say? Like it's just that it happened.
They should have told the audience to buy a Kurt Cobain suicide letter shirt at Urban.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, my main takeaway with this movie is that I don't know if you guys agree, but it doesn't really say anything. There's no message that's forcing on you. It's just like, here's all these images and audio of Kurt. Do what you will. You guys agree?
I think that's a
Wait,
good thing.
That's
Because
your problem with it?
No, I
That's
really
his
like that.
takeaway.
Oh,
That's like
okay.
his
Yeah,
result.
yeah.
Okay.
No, yeah, I agree.
I was thinking because like a lot of times, like you were saying, he's kind of lionized or
Yeah.
legendized, so people.
Idolized.
Yeah. So he's kind of painted as this like mythical figure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
A rock
not only is
god.
he humanized in this, a rock god. Not
yeah.
only is he like their '90s rock icon, Kurt Cobain. Not only is he humanized, but more importantly, I think the movie is not really pushing any particular viewpoint to you. But it's interesting that we're talking about Courtney Love possibly being affiliated with the movie because
Possibly.
everything I've seen
It
about
says right
Courtney,
there.
she's kind of painted as kind of like a villain.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
In this, I thought she kind of was too a little bit. Like she seemed. Maybe that's just her
Maybe
personality.
that's just her personality.
Yeah, but I'm serious. Like she seemed a little like shady in this too. Like
Yeah.
even if she was affiliated with it, she didn't do a good job making herself not seem scandalous or anything like that. I don't know.
Any final thoughts? Montage of Heck.
That was very
watch it.
good.
Yeah, it's a great documentary.
Is it worth the little chunk of change you had to pay to watch it?
No.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
That's
no,
not
I
punk.
I'll reimburse
That's
you.
not
not
worth it.
punk. No, yeah, I'm fine with
Okay.
it. It's $4.
Anyway,
Dude, for me, it was $5. What the hell?
You got HD.
HD?
I did SD. So yeah.
I got a DVD from the library. Free, you suckers.
Oh, man.
Um,
Libraries.
So, to conclude our Kurt Cobain themed episode, I just want to read this little excerpt from this article on Pitchfork.
Oh, the pitch.
Is there
their
anything-
new website?
Is there anything left to say about Kurt Cobain's legacy? Written by Stephen, how do you say that, Sterling?
Dusner?
Dusner.
What are you asking me?
You were looking at it, and I needed help.
Dusner?
Douchner, yeah.
Well,
He's from Pitchfork, so I assume that's how it's pronounced.
He's a contributor, and I just want to read this last paragraph here.
Okay.
We don't have to talk about it, but I think it's really thought-provoking. The headline itself is very thought-provoking, but quote: "The problem with so many books about Nirvana is that they all more or less tell the same story, even if they differ over nuance and minutia. Cobain did spark a revolution in music and popular culture. He did become a figurehead to a generation coming into its own at a time when it didn't have much to come into. He did flame out personally, if not creatively. That story is well known and generally accepted as fact, yet it's becoming as threadbare as one of Cobain's cardigans. As new generations of musicians find new approaches to Cobain or ignore him altogether, what we need from subsequent Nirvana-related titles is a new, younger voice. If there's a future for Cobain publishing, it's in the hands of millennials who never knew the band in the present tense but have inherited its legacy. Does Cobain speak to anyone under 30? If so, what does he say?"
So do you want to talk about that last question or just in general?
I think Nirvana's music was all aimed at teenagers or young adults and whatnot.
Angsty.
And
Yeah.
I think that what humans experience is universal, regardless of gender. I mean, there's obviously differences, like in different struggles that
Culturally,
yeah. And just time period wise, like technology advances and whatnot. But so I think the music is relatable, and I'm under 30.
Prove
I was
it.
born the year he died. So yeah,
Reincarnated.
It's not dated
It
yet
wasn't. It
either.
wasn't 9 months.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it wasn't 9 months. So unfortunately,
One thing you talked about earlier, you were like, I can't wait to hear someone else, like some new information about the story come out. And
Yeah.
he, one of the first things he says right here in this paragraph, the problem with so many books about Nirvana is that they all more or less tell the same story.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe currently they do, but there's probably so much that we don't know. Like, to me, when I was watching Montage of Heck, like, I liked it a lot, but I felt telling the story of Kurt and kind of Nirvana, which I guess that wasn't really their goal, there was a lot I felt was left out.
Especially with
Yeah.
Dave. Dave, being that
Dave
way.
not being there was a bit of a letdown. I would love a more in-depth thing.
There's probably so much that we don't know, especially like you're saying, like other people's sides of the story, honestly.
Yeah.
Like someone like Dave, who was probably very close and knows a lot of stuff that the general public probably doesn't.
Mhm.
But again, that calls into question. I don't know if you want to talk about this more, but I have another thought-provoking
Yeah,
question.
go ahead.
Do you think a movie like this is something, and I hate doing this, but would Kurt have wanted
No,
this?
no.
Is what I'm
No,
saying?
probably not.
No.
Okay, yeah.
But he's dead, so who cares? He has no say.
Kind of a bummer when you think about it that way, too.
Yeah.
But it was a good movie anyways.
What do you think about Nirvana? You can email us at wheelhousecast.
Oh, I thought you were asking me.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I like
Can I
him.
email?
wheelhousecast@gmail.com with your opinions, and maybe we'll read them if we get them.
What do you mean
Chris-
maybe? We don't get any emails.
Because Chris Santi is really lonely.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right, let's get these pitches.
Yes, pitches.
Out of
Time to
the way.
recommend what we will be talking about next week. We are starting with Gus.
Oh, me up first?
Yeah.
Okay, 1992, a favorite band of Kurt's called R.E.M. released possibly their greatest record called Automatic for the People. It's quite different from really anything else they released up to that point and after. It's a bit... I wouldn't say it's like a downer in the sense that Neil Young's On the Beach was, because there are some happier and lighter parts of this.
Yeah,
but
like Everybody Hurts.
Everybody hurts. No, yeah, but that's like, that's what I'm talking about. Universal emotion.
Oh,
Everybody
okay.
hurts, man.
I get you, man.
You made me lose track.
I'm sorry.
Dang it.
Go back to Wikipedia.
1992, R.E.M.
It's great.
Okay.
Yeah. It's very cool. I don't want to say too much,
Okay.
I guess. Yeah, we'll talk about it next
Oh,
week.
is it like Frankie Teardrop?
No, but I was about to compare a track to another thing, but I'll just
Okay.
I shouldn't say it.
I've heard you talk about this album a lot.
All
I
the
think,
time.
So
It's one of my probably in the top 10.
I'm looking forward to it.
Love it.
I'm looking over there under genre. It says Baroque pop. I didn't know R.E.M. had any sort of Baroque pop.
I'm not even
sound.
sure if I truly understand what Baroque pop
you should listen
really
to
focuses on, because I've seen a lot
Odyssey
of
and
things.
Oracle. by the
Yeah.
Zombies.
Well, I've seen
There's
a lot of
little
things
bit
be
on
labeled
Vampire
as
Weekend
Baroque
too.
pop.
Yeah.
Like early Genesis was Baroque pop, and so yeah, there's a lot of things, but alternative rock is pretty good. There's a lot of acoustic aspects to the album as well.
Okay.
Maybe that's where the Baroque comes in. I don't know, but yeah,
Yeah, Kurt almost collaborated with Michael Stipe, but canceled
Wow.
at the last second.
yeah,
Classic Kurt.
they were good.
That could have been cool.
They were pretty good friends at the time.
Next, Mr. Gavinski.
Seconds. Okay. 2014. Okay, good. I was right. So, Seconds is a graphic novel by the writer and illustrator of Scott Pilgrim, a very popular graphic novel series. Seconds is by Bryan Lee O'Malley.
Mm-hmm.
He's from Canada. And Seconds is awesome. So, I think it's his, if you count Scott Pilgrim as just a whole, I think it's his third graphic novel, possibly. But Seconds is hilarious. There's a romance plot, obviously. It's very strong. It's in color. I have it, so I'll lend it to you guys for reading.
Sweet.
It's about this chick who she runs a restaurant called Seconds, and she realizes that the building that the restaurant is in is haunted. So I'm not going to say anything else, but yeah.
Okay.
Was that a spoiler? No, that wasn't a spoiler. Okay,
Yeah.
you're good. You're good.
Now you know what to expect.
Seconds.
I love Scott Pilgrim, so.
Then you're going to love Seconds.
Yeah.
I call
That's
getting the book first
That's
this
fine.
time.
I'll just get it from the library.
Okay,
I wish I knew this earlier because we were at my house. I could have grabbed it.
Oh, dang.
Whatever.
Okay, Andrew.
Finally, my first movie recommendation.
Your first one?
I think so.
Oh my God, you were telling me about this.
Yes.
I'm so happy.
So this film is called American Splendor. It came out in 2003, directed by a married couple, Shari Springer Berman and Robert Pulcini. It's about Harvey Picar, and I'm obsessed with his graphic novel work recently. I've been trying to read as much of his stuff as I can. He's a principal figure in the underground comic scene, specifically his American Splendor series, which was sort of these everyday slice of life snapshots of his, of his life. Very unglamorous, but yeah, he was sort of like an everyman for, America. Stars Paul Giamatti as not a sleazy, conniving music manager.
Wow.
Finally,
For the first time.
because
Yeah.
And the
Love and
last.
Mercy and Straight
And
Outta
Straight Outta
Compton,
Compton,
both Paul being the same character,
Yeah.
and Hope Davis as Harvey's wife Joyce.
Okay.
This film's form, there is nothing like it. How it blends sort of the comic aesthetic with film and even documentary style. It meshes them all together in something I've never seen before. The ending was emotional to me, but that might have been just because, I've read a lot of his work, so I was familiar with the character already. So I'm very curious how, you guys will respond to it, not having read any of his comics. So
Okay.
one little Easter egg, if you scroll down here, cast. One, Josh Hutcherson, his
Oh my God.
feature film debut.
That's
Just as
Hunger
Robin.
Games guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you look, this movie came out in 2003. He was born 92.
So he's 9.
So he was like
11.
11.
Wow.
So probably unrecognizable. So
Yeah, he's also dressed as Robin.
I'm dressed in the costume. So
That's
Yeah.
funny.
So-
this is exciting.
yeah, a lot of good stuff.
Yeah,
Cool.
comic related movie and a comic too, so we'll have some overlap there,
Yeah,
which I
and
didn't even.
what the hell
is
I
Gus
didn't even
doing?
plan.
With the
Dude,
R.E.M.
I was stuck on the whole Kurt Cobain theme. So
Oh,
I was like,
that's
gotta
fine.
Go R.E.M. Hold on, let me think of a comic.
Quick.
Batman soundtrack. Go listen to it. Original Tim Burton.
Okay,
New pitch.
thanks. So we have come to the end of a very long episode.
Finally.
Sorry, Gus. We held you here for so long.
Yeah, I gotta get home.
Yeah. Eat a granola on the way.
Does this granola have chocolate chip in it?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that was my first bite. I took a little piece off.
Well, that's
and
what
I
you
thought
gooped.
I thought it was a little raisin. It was a chocolate chip, and I hate chocolate chip, so I will not be
Should I
eating
just eat the
these.
rest of these?
Yeah, you can.
Oh, nice.
Please.
Well, I'm sorry because there's actually more granola in that fridge, and there's some non-chocolate chip ones.
No, it's fine. Yeah.
Some with almonds.
I appreciate the thought.
That was the one I was going for because I think that one's actually better.
Oh.
Spoilers. So next week,
I don't know if that
I'll
counts as
bring it.
spoiler.
Next week.
So we are at the end of this episode of Wheelhouse. Thank you so much for listening. You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/wheelhousecast. Follow us on Twitter at wheelhousecast. I'll start using hashtags because I finally learned how to use them. You can subscribe to our feed on iTunes, where you can also rate and review us. Still only one review. Very lonely. Finally, if you have any questions or want to share your own review of any of the media we have talked about, email us at wheelhousecast@gmail.com. And also, we're thinking about bringing guests on, so stay tuned for that. So, thank you, Sterling. Thank you, Gus.
Thanks,
Thanks,
dude.
Andrew.
You ruin it every time.
Dang it.
My name is Andrew, reminding you, don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs.
That wasn't even a Wheelhouse pun.
That wasn't even in
Yeah,
Wheelhouse
it was
drugs,
going
yeah.
against expectations.
Well,
Kurt Cobain would have disagreed with you.
and that's punk.
And that's spunk, yeah.